skate to when I was little. Should feel like it's on clouds. Yeah. Sonia Henney wrote a book called Wings on My Feet. And in her last movie, she sang a song. She sang to a group of children. She's actually singing in this movie. And it's a song that her father taught her when she was a little girl. It's about skating and flying. And skating really is the closest thing we have to flying without having wings.
Boy and girl, how happy they can be if they fly all night, fancy and free, like me.
Exercise that we do to warm up, and I do get warmed up. Sometimes my figures are surprisingly strong, and at this age I have my mind is stronger.
Right.
When I was younger, I was more prone toward the nerves, which no matter how hard you train, if you're nervous, the figures could be a disaster.
Right, yeah.
So that's it was two skills you had to have figures, not only to be trained to do them properly, but to do them in the context of high pressure.
They're so deeply intellectual, really getting your body and your mind all connected like that.
You can never let down. And I make the point that on the 6.0 system years ago, it was based upon the 6 tracings of a figure. Most people don't know that. And in free skating, very rarely we would see a 6.0. Certainly 5, 7s, 8s, 9s, and But in figures, to be world champion at figures, you had to get a 4.0 or above, which was very difficult.
Yeah.
Figures, no one was even close to a 6.
Right. It's one of those superhuman things.
Yeah. Not as dangerous, but more difficult in their own way.
Right.
And it's like a skill that people can do more of their life. Difficulty does not have to be dangerous.
Right, yeah.
Skating at its best, I believe, blends the 4 major art genres of the world, which are fine, performing, decorative, and recording. What I love about World Figure Sports Society and the World Figure and Fancy Skating Championships is it's a blend of the figure legacy with the world professional artistic skating legacy. And people came together for a mission to save what skating was like for really over 100 years. Most people don't realize that's what skating looked like for in excess of 100 years. It's amazing.
And, yeah. Some of the creative figures that they came up with when they first started, oh my goodness. I would dream of being able to do even half of that.
I used to open up the books at the Philadelphia Skating Club and Humane Society, and there were figures in there. I tried to figure, how did they do this? Mm-hmm. And I would get my competitors, one of whom was known for extremely good figures, and we were teenagers, and we would just get very frustrated trying to figure out how to stay on one foot and do the figures. But they were masters in their own way back in the day, the Gillis Grafstroms and the Carl Schaefers and Ulrich Salkais, because that's what they had, that's what they did, and that's what they mastered for the time. And they were like pencil thin, balancing like a cat and shifting their weight.
Right.
Unbelievable. Outside, no less, with wind.
Yeah. You didn't have the nice smooth ice that you have now. It wasn't the manicured lawn type.
I have massive respect for those guys, I don't know. So, being the first Winter Olympic sport of all of them, most people don't realize that. They also don't realize that ice skating was the favorite activity of an emperor of China 1,000 years ago. and that there was a Kangxi Emperor of China in the 1700s. He used to have ice skating shows at his palace. It was only for the court.
Oh, wow.
It was not for the common people. With over 2,000 participants, and the first concubine was presented in the finale as a jewel.
Oh my goodness.
That is a historic fact. There's a scroll painting in the Beijing Museum, Palace Museum, that depicts this extraordinarily extravagant ice show
Wow.
back in the day. So we're unique as an activity.
Right.
This is a tough one.
Oh yeah.
Check super hard. After the waltz jump, we have to land. Normally skaters turn to the outside on a landing.
Right.
On this, we have to remain on the inside, holding a right back outside or left back outside edge across the arc of the top of the circle, and then do a bracket, trace that bracket on the third. Stay on one foot, same on the other side.
Oh,
So
and
it's a very panicky figure.
I imagine, and you don't have a lot of momentum to really help carry you through to change that edge.
Yeah,
So,
it's a great challenge blending a jump with a figure, unlike we did in the past. This was done a long time ago. So we're reviving figures. Well, jumps came from figures originally, figure patterns.
right.
The Braxel figure, the greatest challenge of it is the control over the arc of the top third of the circle. That separates the men from the boys kind of thing, or the girls from the ladies.
There you go.
So naturally, we have to do a lot of stretching. As you
Right.
get older, that becomes a challenge. But these are so addictive. They're so, there's something about them. I love figures in a new way now. I hated them when I was a little child, and I was terrible at them. I loved free skating, but I began to love figures when I began to draw them and use an art training technique on paper
Right.
with a compass to make my circles round and lined up. And I would go to sleep looking at an image on the wall of a perfect figure and wake up in the morning, my father put it up on the wall. These things help. I think they were helpful. So I did a lot of off-ice training on my figures, so I could eventually score into the fours, 4.0, 4.5, and a couple of times in the high fours. Most skaters never got to a 5.0 or between a 5.0 and a 6.0 on a figure. That almost never happened.
Right. Yeah.
Another challenge that we have today is that we're using the same pair of blades and boots for fancy as the figures.
Right. Right.
And finding that happy medium between the two is in itself a skill. I think what I love most about the fancy skating is that we take into consideration the lines created on the ice when we're skating to music,
Right.
because they can be seen even from a distance.
Yes.
So the integrity of a person's movement, their balance, their transitions results in an actual mark on the ice. And when a skater does an actual loop or a rocker where there's control in and out, it can clearly be seen. You can probably do a Maltese cross.
Oh, that's a good one.
take a bit of warm up.
Oh, these ones are so impressive, though. I mean, they really.
There are 48 turns on this one.
I'm like, and in such a tiny little space.
Like rocker, counter. Counter. The whole figure is right there.
Mhm.
It's coming out of the counter.
Right.
You either live or die on the counter. Right here. And it has to be just right. You know what's amazing about this one especially, but all these figures, but especially this one, you've got to train it like the same as free skating.
Right.
I sometimes have to free skate and get all like hot and then do my figures. It's the other way around.
So.
Because they require, I mean, I'm just like gasping,
Right.
and perspiring doing these things because you can not put your other foot down.
Right.
That's a massive penalty.
Well, the balance and you're using every muscle for these things, really.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
And I think in competition, the stress of not putting the other foot down, the competition can be blown on one moment where you lose your balance.
right. And a free skate, if you put your foot down on a jump, you have all these other options to
Figure,
make it up.
It's over. It's a way people can be relevant for many more years and to bring themselves to the crystal stage
Right.
and promote the activity as I believe it. I believe it truly is the world's most comprehensively artistic activity.
Well, it truly sets this sport aside from any other sport. There's no other sport where you truly are this artistic and athletic. You know?
I agree. And I think that's what has propelled skating to its own echelon of respect and its mystique.
Right.
I think its history is much, much, much richer than even most skaters know. Part of my job is to single figure skating out as the center, the nucleus, the event horizon of an art movement, because it's where I got my start in the arts. I once asked my father, what's the greatest achievement for an artist? Because I had a quantification mechanism known as the Olympic track
Right.
and the World Championships. And I also realized that what I was doing was an art form. So at about 9 years old, I said, Dad, what's the greatest achievement for an artist? And he said, Shep, I don't know. That's a good question. Maybe having something in the Louvre and being dead for 300 years. And I said, I don't like that. So basically, I wanted to find a way to quantify art talent. So I came up with the world art movements. So in the formulation of working with world figure sport over these 10 years, this last decade, I believe that we really have packaged the crystal stage, the crystal carpet, skating in such a way, the jeweled sport, so that people realize this is an exceptional and historic activity. Ice skating is the oldest form of human-powered transportation on a piece of equipment. Bone skates go back over 5,000 years, it is believed. So skating really, it transported us with survival, and today it transports us inspirationally through the arts. Yeah, I grew up in Atlanta in the early to mid-70s. I began skating, and it wasn't cool. It wasn't cool to be a male figure skater.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine.
Despite that, I knew what I was doing was special. And I remember Dorothy winning.
Right.
and I remember meeting her, and she was very nice. And she really has been like a beacon of light for me. When I won World Figure the first time, she was the one that put the medal on me.
Oh, especially.
Yeah, she was also the last person to call my mother to check up on us before she died. Yeah, and there's more history, but you know, she was always very inspiring to me, and it's fun working with Debbie Thomas because we often reference Dorothy's P.A. Jesu. Why? Because P.A. Jesu is a piece of music, what it's about, how she skates, and where she is in her life at that point speaks to really very much what you are doing with skating, promoting. It's for a person of any age, and it's really like more of even a spiritual activity at its best.
Right.
This is figure skating inspires people and reaches their hearts, and sometimes people may not even realize that when they're watching. They're drawn to it, but they don't even realize why. And I think it's that ethereal quality that draws people in.
Right. Yeah. It's something you don't have to be on the ice. You can feel, if you have a good skater who's a good artist out there, you feel the program, you feel the music with them in a new way that you've never felt before.
Something very special is happening. That's why the world art movement is the movement art movement. I think I'm kind of an anomaly, and I'm thankful for that. I've had peaks and valleys, but I know at this point I'm very thankful for my skating family, the opportunity to do something I know in my heart is meaningful. It's meaningful, and preserving the namesake of the sport. And what I have to add that the investment my parents made, even after their passing, both died tragically, but seeing what they went through, the sacrifices that they made for me to be able to do this, and carrying it forward in a way that I believe is producing something worthwhile, bringing a lot of friends along with me.
That's amazing.
That makes me happy.
So, Shepard, if you don't mind, just tell us a little bit about what got you started in skating.
I recall I was 3 years old, and my older brother was learning to skate because ice skating birthday parties were very popular. And so my mother asked me if I wanted to tag along and to go ice skating. And I said, ice skating, you know, what's that? Remember, this is the Deep South, Atlanta, in the really the mid-70s. And I remember asking, we're on this road going to the rink, and I remember asking as we're entering the parking lot, how wide are these blades? And they said, they're steel, and they're about this wide, and you skate on the ice. And I said, that sounds dangerous. I was 3 or 4 years old, and this is 50 years ago. I remember I was carrying in my hand to the rink a little pile of like glass pebbles that looked like gemstones because I liked rocks and minerals and gems. And I was about to be introduced to the jeweled sport. And I remember all of those stones as I got up out of the car spilled into the crack of the seat of the car, and I never saw them again, despite all of my effort. But the treasure hunt became for gold on the ice in the form of medals. And I was more interested in the gold content of the medal, and remembering Dorothy biting her Olympic gold medal. And then I realized that the meaning of the accomplishment was much more than the actual the element itself. Skating I knew was special. And I knew there was something about it that I just felt that I had a connection with, and it was what I was supposed to do. Which is strange when you consider all of these, a variety of things that my mother introduced my brother to and to me, so that we would have sort of a well-rounded youth.
Love it. And so skating just kind of resonated with that artistic side of you, correct? But you did a lot technically. I mean, there's some moves that you did and you introduced that nobody else has.
You know, it's funny. I think of myself as a bit of a hybrid because I have a very technical side, mathematical side, and practical side. I also have this sort of like creative to my own detriment side. And so when I see someone like Tyler Cranston, I see skaters like John Curry and Sonia Henney and the variety of talents that she had as a business person and as being involved in film. I think these people are very inspirational to me. I've always been interested in people who do something from their skating, do something unusual and unexpected after skating, or even at the same time. Years ago, I asked God to help me in my life to use everything I've ever loved to achieve something greater than I've ever sought. This was at a pivotal moment in my life, and I never imagined that I would be doing what I'm doing today. After I had finished competing Olympic eligible, I remember there was a span of years, and I thought, well, if I'm going to participate in skating, I'm going to do it on my own terms. And I had these dreams where I was doing figures at like a world level event. Very, very clearly, it was like a world level event. And I remember that the arena I was in was very much like the 1932 rink in Lake Placid. I knew that that's kind of where it was. I felt that. It made 0 sense at the time because world figure sport had not been invented yet. As I was a child, I began to realize that my father said, if you want to achieve the gold, you have to seek the platinum. You have to seek to be stronger and better than anyone has been previously in each level, and then eventually in the senior level if you want to achieve the gold. Because he says there are people out there who are of the same mind and heart and spirit, who are training and want the same thing you do, and they'll be as driven, and you're not going to know them or encounter them until it's too late. So I had a love for skating, and I had a love of challenging myself, and I enjoyed competing. I didn't like being nervous. I really loved my competitors. I didn't look at them as my enemy. Maybe that was a weakness, but I think that it's greater to participate in something in a spirit of love than in a spirit of war and battle. So for me, skating, I loved the ice shows. I loved the music. I loved performing. I didn't like the stress, but I loved the difficulty, and I loved achieving new plateaus and doing things that previous generations said, like the triple axel when I was a small child, was considered to be impossible. And I had to do many triple axels and in combination, and then began to develop quadruple rotation jumps. So I really do appreciate the learning curve of skating. The fact that my father said one time in a moment of frustration, he said, "Shepard, I don't think you'll ever win a sectional." And I ended up winning 7 or 8 of them, I think.
Oh, wow.
Which is a lot.
Yeah.
And I think I have more in senior than anyone, or I don't know, tied some record. But, the point is that my career was so long, 3 to 33. Now I'm 53.
Right.
And I'm still skating and working to maintain the namesake of figure skating, and to present like a Hollywood packaging agent, figure skating as the world's most comprehensively artistic activity, blending fine, performing, decorative, and recording art, all on a crystal stage. The jeweled sport, where we dance on a crystal, wear jeweled costumes, and compete for gold. That's pretty cool.
I just love that. That's such an amazing way to say that, So.
And this is the world art movement, the movement art movement.
Yes. So now tell us a little bit about that.
Okay. The world art movement was originally founded in asking my father what's the highest achievement for an artist. And since he really couldn't tell me, I said, well, I think artists should have their moment in the sun just like figure skaters. We are in the entertainment industry, we're the Olympic culture, we have our own world championships, and we're the four major art genres of the world all in one activity. And I thought, well, we've got something that other artists should have and feel if they wish to participate. So I came up with an art evaluation mechanism, a system called ROM, R-O-M. It's based on relevance, originality, and mastery. So when I look at a work of art, I see a performance, I look at something someone has made, and in working with people and helping them to enjoy art and know why they're drawn to something or want to collect something or not, I ask, what is the message of the work? Can you discern a message? Is it provocative? Does it make your heart sing? Is it disturbing? How powerful, how compelling is the message?
Nice. Yeah.
Then I ask, how creatively is that message delivered?
Nice.
That's originality.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, how brilliant is the technique with which the message was delivered, through which the message was delivered. So was the idea carried off brilliantly and technically executed in a way that was a tour de force of skill. So these three questions, very rarely do I encounter art that hits the highest score, in my opinion, of all three. And I remind people that each individual brings to the evaluation system their own life experience. There's no
Right.
wrong answer.
Mm-hmm.
But the more one uses it, the more one becomes used to evaluating, I think that they'll find that they come up with their own sort of criteria and evaluation, and it helps them to become a curator of their own collection, whether it's in their mind, or it's on their phone, their computer, collection of images, or their home. They become a curator of their own museum.
Love that.
Here's a piece of poetry I love, and I must maintain. After my mother had passed away, somehow after 45 years, a memory came back of a poem that I'd heard as a child that was very disturbing, but in a good way. The poem is called The Giving Tree by Shel Silverstein. And it's about a little boy who goes into the forest, and there's this tree that he has this relationship with, and he leaves, and he comes back a little older, and the tree provides something else for this boy. And he leaves, and he comes back a little bit older. And this back and forth goes on 5 or 6 or 7 times. And in the end, he's an old man, and all that's left is a tree stump. And the story is actually about the love of a mother. And I got to see that. My mother was the person who got me in skating. And over 50 years, basically, she was there helping me go from the very worst at figures to being in a position that's meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
It's because of her. We had some help from God. My father and mother were extraordinary people, and believe me, they won their Olympics in their relationship. I remember that in 2020, when my mother passed away, I was so exhausted. I had a heart attack before she died because of the stress of what was happening that I had to manage during COVID and with her and all of these circumstances. I was so burned out that I almost didn't go to Lake Placid. I decided, the Kellys reached out to me and they said, we'll be your family. Come and spend Christmas with us. My mother had just died. And at the last minute I said, I'm going to take everything and just go and see them and spend Christmas with the Kellys, and then I'll do World Figure. Let's take one step at a time.
Right.
At that event, I didn't know this, but they had decided, the World Figure Sports Society board had decided to create an award named after my mother, the Suzanne Shelley Clark Award. And they presented it to me at the end of the event. And well, naturally, I thought, who would ever have imagined my mother being who she was, being where she was from, and what her life was like, that she would be in the middle of a Hall of Fame in Lake Placid as a skating mom.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah,
Oh.
That and her burial site, those two things in my life remain, more than anything else, the most precious, valuable, and extraordinary of the things that to me personally, that I've ever been a part of.
What a legacy,
Being able to work with Debbie, that's been fun, because Debbie always would make me laugh. She has an amazing sense of humor, and she's a person who's very, very conscientious. She always lives according to her conscience, no matter what everyone else thinks. She'll do what she believes is right. Other people may not understand it, but make no mistake, Debbie is a force to be reckoned with when it comes to deciding what she wants to do and going out and doing it. Coming back to skating after not having been on the ice for 12 years, being a retired orthopedic surgeon, having the ups and downs that she's had, losing 54 pounds, looking like Debbie from old World Pro days, and just having a countenance that was like, I'm back, I'm here, I'm doing this thing because I believe in preserving the namesake of the sport. She was the winner of the last figure skated at the Olympic Games, the last two figures. Mm-hmm. And I said, Debbie, you made cultural history. First person of color from anywhere on earth to medal at the Winter Olympics. And you won figures at the Olympic Games. I said, that's crazy hard. And people love you. I said, Debbie, people love you. They're invested in you even today. I see people when we're out and about and come up to her and they make the most amazing remarks. But she and I laugh a lot, and our job today is to find those people who should be put on a platform as the world's greatest skating artists, and to create this stage upon which skaters graduate and can live out delivering relevance, originality, and mastery on their terms, things that we never even imagined could have been on the ice. They can put on the ice, truly deliver their own gifts on their own terms, and be awarded in a way that they should be.
Nice. Now, for people who never did figures growing up, whether they were skaters or they're brand new to the sport, you feel like figures are very important to maintain, obviously, but maybe it's a little intimidating for most people. So what would you say to them?
I'd say that the culture in the past of spending hours a day on figures is something that we don't have currently, and it's not necessary to participate. The standard is different now. But the rewards for those who are willing to put a little time in, and like a friend of mine once said when I was young, you need to learn to make love to the figures.
I love that.
A coach said you need to learn to make love to the figures. And I built up a relationship with the figures, and they're a beautiful art form. And one could make the argument that they're probably right up there as one of the hardest fine art forms on earth, because you're drawing with your entire body.
Right.
So, imagine drawing a picture. We have one part of the competition in the senior world championships, world figure sport, that's nerve-wracking. And last year, for the first time in 122 years, in the competition, the men's and the ladies competed with each other. And I got to see Debbie's creative figure that she invented. I got to see it in practice, and I call it the 200 IQ figure. I looked at this thing and I said, that's the coolest design I've ever seen skated into the ice. So I had to sit and think and become very cerebral. What can I deliver? There's another competitor named Mark Fenzak who skates for France or Ukraine, and his figures are very good. He's an ice dancer and he does great creative figures. So I thought, Shep, you're really going to have to bring it. You're going to have to bring your game. And this is a very intellectual part of the competition because it's kind of subjective. It's more about aesthetics. And I ended up winning the figure somehow. I don't know how, but I made it as pretty as I possibly could, and bright and clear and clean. And I think that they recognized that kind of quality, a little bit of an OCD, but from a distance I got some pictures of it and I made a work of art out of it, so I call it the Galaxy. The world art movement, I like to call it the movement, art movement, singles figure skating out because I consider it to be the most comprehensively artistic activity on earth. It blends fine, performing, decorative, and recording art, and it blends the history of the Olympics, Hollywood, and the arts into one activity. And I think Sonja Henie was the first really to do that. So the world art movement, focusing on figure skating at its core, at its center, the crystal stage, is bigger than skating. I've always said figure skating needs to be immersed in something much larger than itself, to be seen as relevant in a new way and as an activity that can be participated in a Winter Olympic activity that can be done anywhere on Earth. And that gives people the opportunity to experience an Olympic sport, all four of the major art genres of the world, and something that has a fantastic legacy in the entertainment world in Hollywood. I think there's an argument that can be made that Sonja Henie was the world's first superstar. And she dominated in the Olympic Games. She was 11 at her first Winter Olympic Games 100 years ago.
Wow.
Almost exactly 100 years ago. And she was a sensation because she was this little girl among big men. Mm-hmm. And then the next three Olympics, she got last at that Olympics, but the next three Olympics, she got gold, gold, gold. And there was this geometric expansion in her fame because children, girls were not typically singled out for being world famous. The idea of a child star was kind of unknown in the popular conscience. Mm-hmm. People had to be adults to be, accomplished. And I think the fact that she was a girl and that she was doing something so beautiful and so exotic, she was able, they say that she helped to save the Winter Olympics in 1932. She was so famous as a 19-year-old at that point that people smashed into Lake Placid just to see her, that the International Olympic Committee was going to discontinue the Winter Olympics as a concept after 1932, but they decided to keep it because of her fame and the fact that she helped to make it economically viable. And that's why the Sonja Henie Tower work of art was erected in Lake Placid in her honor. So we really owe a debt of gratitude to Sonja, who then in Hollywood's golden era was through the biggest parties and was the most successful society hostess and was more financially successful than any of the next three celebrities combined.
Wow.
People in skating don't realize that. She was, of her time, a superstar, and she really opened the door for athletes to be celebrated as superstars and royalty in their own right. She really, really opened that door. She was the first to wear white skates. So even the emoji of the ice skate on your phone is a result of Sonja Henie.
Right.
She had a jewel collection that was famous. She skated in real jewels. She had real furs, ermines. She was Queen of Ice. She really was the Queen of Ice. And I think I think it's important for people to realize she knew that she had something good. Her father, who was a businessman, realized that they had something that had value and was important, and they packaged it. They had vision, and they were very aggressive about this. But we owe them a debt of gratitude because she created a legacy. She united the Olympics, Hollywood, and the arts.
Right.
And in the whole of human history, no one has ever, and probably will ever, live the life that she lived. One fact about Sonja Henie is almost all of her performances were completely sold out through her career. And I think that back in the day, the average person didn't have access to a movie star, an A-list movie star. Seeing an A-list movie star in person who was also an iconic Olympic champion. Stop and think about that.
Right.
She was an A-list movie star in Hollywood's golden era and the most successful Olympic star in figure skating's history. That life, she was born on April 8th. Her birthstone was the diamond. She was born on the 8th for figure 8. There's more neat coincidence in Sonja Henie's life, as if to get you to think, pause for a moment and think, well, maybe this life was supposed to have been lived.
Mm-hmm.
So she really branded skating as being this extremely exotic, extraordinary, exceptional, special culture. And part of my job, I see, is to translate these ideas to this generation today and say, in the world art movement, to bring Web 3.0 technologies where we can elevate one another and we can evaluate art and make our lives so much richer. I think that I've had a vision for the World Figure Sports Society in Lake Placid as being the zenith, the ultimate skating club.
Mm-hmm.
And there are only 1,200 seats in the 1932 rink. And there are only 7,000 seats in the 1980 Miracle on Ice rink. I thought, we should gather the skating community, the zenith of the skating community, come together and have this place for people to graduate so there isn't this stress on young people. There's a huge amount of stress to try to do triple axels, quad axel when skaters are very, very young.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't imagine it becoming more age compressed than it already is.
Right.
So there needs to be a place to take what they have built, that foundation, and know that there's a way to use their skating that's meaningful for a lifetime, so that youths with no other frame of reference don't feel like they're in a marriage that it all of a sudden divorces them because of a biological clock.
Right.
The other part of the World Figure and Fancy Skating Championships, the World Professional Artistic Skating Legacy, I have to really give Lorna Brown a lot of credit. She was the world professional champion and British champion back in the late 70s and around 80. She skated with John Curry, and she donated her trophies to be the World Figure and Fancy Skating Championships trophies. And that was a very selfless and very generous act. She's a choreographer I had worked with back in Los Angeles, a sweet person. And throughout the years that World Figure and Fancy Skating Championships has evolved, we have been developing the structure of how the skating is judged. And I said to the Kellys and the board, I said, I think it is as important on the black ice for the judges to observe the lines.
Right.
So that when a skater does a loop or they do a rocker in and out, you can see, just like John Curry's program, After All, which was choreographed by a very famous, Twyla Tharp, or someone very, very famous. you can see the integrity of the smoothness of these lines, these rockers and loops, and while delivering sculptural positions and holding them.
Yeah.
That is extremely difficult. Turnout, toe point, the shoulders and chest, like aligning the chin. You know, it's magnificent, and it's very difficult and simple and beautiful, and I think that's, it feels good to skate that way. It's difficult, but it feels good.
Right, yeah.